What if you walked into a Cadillac showroom, paid a premium Cadillac price, drove home feeling like you had just bought one of America's most prestigious luxury cars, and then discovered that the same car was sitting on the lot across the street, wearing a Chevrolet badge and selling for thousands of dollars less? What if that same car was also being sold at the Buick dealer, the Oldsmobile dealer, and the Pontiac dealer, all at the same time? Also with nothing changed except the badge on the hood and a few pieces of trim? That is exactly what General Motors did for nearly an entire decade. And the most remarkable part of the story is not that they did it. The most remarkable part is how long it took for the American car-buying public to fully understand what had happened to them. This is the true documented story of the GMJ body platform, the single car design that General Motors sold under 5 completely different names, in 5 completely different showrooms to 5 completely different groups of buyers who each believed they were getting something unique. If real automotive history like this is what brings you here, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon right now, because this channel covers true stories exactly like this one every single week. To understand how General Motors pulled off one of the most audacious badge engineering operations in automotive history, you need to go back to the mid-1970s, when the American car industry was facing the most difficult period it had ever encountered. The 1973 Arab oil embargo had sent gasoline prices skyrocketing overnight, and American consumers who had spent 2 decades buying big, heavy, fuel-thirsty cars were suddenly demanding something completely different. Small, efficient, affordable cars from Japan were pouring into American showrooms and finding buyers who had never before considered anything other than a domestic brand. General Motors, the largest automaker in the world and a company that had never truly been challenged in its home market, found itself in genuine trouble. GM's initial response to the small car challenge had been the Chevrolet Vega, introduced for the 1971 model year. Designed with an innovative aluminum block inline-4 engine and priced competitively, the Vega quickly gained a reputation for severe reliability problems, including rapid corrosion that ate through fenders and quarter panels within a few years, as well as engine overheating caused by inadequate cooling systems and leaking valve stem seals. The Vega became one of the most public engineering embarrassments in General Motors history, and by 1977 it was gone. But the platform it had been built on, the H-body, survived, and the lessons of the Vega's failure directly shaped what GM would do next. In 1975, General Motors introduced a more refined vehicle on the H-body platform, the Chevrolet Monza. Introduced for the 1975 model year, the Monza competed with the Ford Mustang II and other sporty coupes, and the same basic body was immediately shared with the Buick Skyhawk and Oldsmobile Starfire. The Pontiac Sunbird followed for the 1976 model year. GM was already practicing badge engineering at a significant scale, 4 divisions selling essentially the same subcompact car under different names. But what came next made the H-body era look modest by comparison. By 1976, GM's engineers had already begun working on the next generation of small car. The design of what would become the J car began in 1976. Originally, it was only intended for the Chevrolet and Pontiac brands, but soon thereafter, Oldsmobile and Buick were added. The goal was ambitious: create a single compact car architecture that could be produced efficiently at enormous scale, sold in markets across the entire world, and marketed under multiple GM brand names simultaneously. The oil crisis had made it absolutely clear that the future of the American car market included a significant and permanent segment of small, fuel-efficient vehicles. General Motors was not going to develop separate answers for each of its 5 American divisions. It was going to develop one answer and stamp 5 different names on it. The decision that would make this story truly remarkable came in November of 1979. Subsequent to the second fuel crisis, and only 14 months before the car's introduction, it was decided to create a Cadillac derivative as well. Think about what that decision actually meant. General Motors had already committed to selling the same basic car under 4 brand names: Chevrolet, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, and Buick. Each of those brands occupied a different rung on GM's carefully constructed prestige ladder, from the affordable Chevrolet at the bottom to the near-luxury Buick at the top. Now, with less than 14 months before the car was supposed to reach showrooms, someone in a GM boardroom decided to add Cadillac, America's most prestigious domestic luxury brand. A nameplate that carried decades of associations with wealth, success, and the finest American craftsmanship, to the list of nameplates that would sit on top of this economy compact. The J-body marked the introduction of front-wheel drive for GM's compact model lines, simultaneously replacing the rear-wheel drive H-body platform. For the 1982 model year, the 5 cars arrived in showrooms. The Chevrolet Cavalier was the foundation of the entire family, an entry-level front-wheel drive compact that GM positioned as its affordable, practical answer to the Honda Civic and Toyota Corolla. The Cavalier was notable for its extensive badge engineering across GM brands, with siblings including the Pontiac Sunbird, Buick Skyhawk, Oldsmobile Forenza, and Cadillac Cimarron, marking the first time a single basic design was shared by all 5 GM divisions. Side-by-side period press photographs of all 5 J cars, showing the unmistakable similarities in body shape, roofline, and basic proportions. The Cadillac Cimarron deserves particular attention because it represents perhaps the most revealing and ultimately damaging decision in this entire story. Aside from a hefty price tag, the hastily developed Cimarron had little to distinguish it from the other J car offerings. Cadillac added leather seating, a few additional convenience features, and unique exterior trim, then priced the Cimarron significantly higher than its Chevrolet twin to justify the Cadillac badge. Buyers who walked into Cadillac showrooms expecting the traditional American luxury experience, the boulevard ride, the substantial feel, the genuine sense of prestige, instead found a small front-wheel drive economy car dressed in leather seats. The automotive press was brutal in its assessment. The Cimarron became a symbol of corporate corner-cutting that damaged Cadillac's carefully built brand image for years. The A-bodies were simultaneously presented on the August 22, 1983 cover of Forbes magazine as examples of genericized uniformity, embarrassing the company and ultimately prompting GM to recommit to design leadership. The Forbes cover was a watershed moment. Here was one of America's most respected business publications telling its readers, and by extension telling the entire car-buying public, what GM had been doing. The same car, dressed in 5 different suits, sold in 5 different showrooms, to buyers who each thought they were getting something tailored specifically for them. What made the situation even more complicated was the scale at which the J car was being produced. Over its 24-year production run, the GM-J platform would be sold under 16 different nameplates. During the 1980s, a version of the J platform would be marketed by every division of General Motors in North America. Over 5.8 million of the original pre-1995 facelift J cars were sold in North America alone. Approximately 10,150,000 GM-J platform cars were sold across 11 marques on 6 continents from 1982 through 1997. Period international versions of J-body cars, Opel Ascona in Europe, Holden Camira in Australia, showing the truly global scale of this single car platform. The buyers who suffered most from this strategy were not the Chevrolet customers. They were paying the right price for what they were getting. The buyers who paid the real cost were the Cadillac customers who paid luxury prices for economy car engineering, and to a lesser extent, the Buick and Oldsmobile customers who expected their brands to deliver something more distinguished than a rebadged Cavalier. When those buyers eventually compared notes, at family gatherings, at work, in parking lots where they found themselves parked next to what appeared to be the same car wearing a cheaper brand's badge, the reaction was predictable. Trust eroded. Brand loyalty that GM had spent decades building began to crack. General Motors eventually acknowledged the mistake. The company recommitted to genuine product differentiation between its divisions, a principle that GM's founder Alfred Sloan had originally established decades earlier. He argued that each GM brand should occupy a distinct price and prestige position, and that the cars sold under each name should genuinely reflect that distinction rather than merely wearing a different badge. The J-car era had tested that principle to its breaking point, and the results had taught GM's management a lesson about brand integrity that the company would spend years working to repair. The legacy of the J-body story is significant in ways that extend far beyond General Motors. It became one of the clearest and most documented case studies in automotive history of what happens when badge engineering is taken too far. Watch when the cost savings of sharing platforms and components across brands outweighs the investment in genuine product differentiation. The Cadillac Cimarron in particular became the example that automotive journalists and business school professors reached for whenever the subject of brand dilution needed an illustration. It showed that a nameplate, no matter how prestigious, cannot survive long-term if the product wearing it does not genuinely deliver what that nameplate has always promised. If this kind of real, carefully researched automotive history is what you come here for, make sure you are subscribed to this channel, because every single week we bring you true stories exactly like this one. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.